I've been joined by Jitendra Vijay at the Global Technology Summit. He's the CEO of Startup Hub, which is an initiative of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Welcome to WION.
Thank you so much for having me.
First things first, how is the Indian startup ecosystem shaping up according to you?
See, under our Honorable Prime Minister's vision, what entity was created 6 years ago? A mission to really believe that the youth of India, in combination with technology, realize the future of India. Today, we have more than 80,000 startups registered with DPIIT. We have innovations happening across every sector: health tech, agri-tech, defense tech, infra tech, med tech. So right now, we are in a place where there's an opportunity for our youngsters to redefine the future of India, and now we have to take it to the next level.
I totally agree. Jeet, the Indian startup ecosystem has emerged as the third largest in the world. But various reports over the last few years have pointed out that 80 to 90% of startups fail in the first 5 years of their inception. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's absolutely true, right? Because any economic entity that is created, it has its life. And unless it keeps growing, it will hit a saturation point. And even in the startup ecosystem, it's critical to get 4 or 5 things. One is funding. Second is technical expertise. Third is access to market. Fourth is customers. And fifth is expansion and product portfolio diversification. So all those things need to happen. Otherwise, startups will lose out to the competitiveness of a free market system. And I think that's where we are, that we need to understand that failure is part of life. It's not a failure of the entrepreneur. It's a failure of the startup that they have at this point. Now they can pivot that startup, they can reinvigorate it, they can redefine their market fit, or they can go out and figure out new innovation which can really transform it.
Talking of Indian startups, we are seeing more pitfalls and less promises of late. Where do you think they're going wrong?
See, I wouldn't call it, mistakes or pitfalls. Now, we were in a time of pandemic for last 2, 3 years. And that had redefined how the society operates, how the economies operate, how the geopolitics of the world operates. Now, after having come out of the pandemic, there is a sudden shift in the way the world is working. And that's where the being nimble, being quick to pivot is critically important for a startup. So you may give example of startups in certain sector that might facing the headwinds now, right? Especially, let's say, ed tech. Because now that, before we had just virtual classrooms happening during the lockdown, now the physical system is back. So these startups have to retweak their model, figure out the best combination of virtual and physical, and ensure that they can provide the maximum value to their customer, which is the student and which is the parents. So that's just an example of one sector. But I don't think Indian startup ecosystem has any systematic issues that they need to worry about.
Talking of Indian startups, how can we not talk about unicorns? Right now, what is happening? Their funding is shrinking, profitability is affected. Unicorns are firing thousands of employees. Where do you think they've gone wrong in the last 1 year?
See, again, I think I wouldn't call it gone wrong, right? So now there's a concept of capital markets that you need to keep growing and you need to keep catering to the market. And in an innovation-driven startup, the idea is to capture market quickly so you can create a first-mover advantage and have a defensible position in the market. And that is what they have been chasing. Now, what we need to focus on is actually the value addition, not valuation increase. And these startups have to really figure out per unit economics, per unit cost, and figure out where is the break even for them, where is the diminishing returns to their margin, and how do they realign their business to ensure that they can provide returns for the investor, value for their customer, and sustainability for the ecosystem.
All right, so what new policies and schemes we can expect from the government to strengthen the startup ecosystem in India?
Thank you for that one. I'll tell you, so now that, in the last 6 years, where we are, we have created the base of the pyramid, 80,000 plus startup, and more startups are being created every single day. One of the biggest challenges we face is how do you scale up these startups, right? How do we reduce the failure cost of the startup? And that is where we are focused on. So Ministry of Electronics and IT launched a new scheme focused on building accelerator ecosystem in India, whereby we are looking at startups with a very quantifiable outcome through their accelerator programming, either market expansion, either funding increase, either a geographic expansion of the startup. So the idea is build more scalable startup through the accelerator ecosystem. Second thing we are really focused on is what our Honorable Prime Minister says, that everybody has the right to entrepreneurship. It's not a privilege for the college graduates or the people living in the metros. So how do we take innovation and entrepreneurship orientation and resources to tier 2 and tier 3? And Ministry of Electronics and IT, through various programming and scheme, is focused on ensuring that people in tier 2, tier 3 have access to expert mentors, access to market linkages, access to capital, either for their seed funding or for their product development. So I think that's where we need to focus on. One is take the resources to tier 2, tier 3. Second is look at how do we enable the participation of women in a startup ecosystem more strongly and more broadly. And third is figure out how do we scale these startups better through the new programming and schemes we come up with.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on WION. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable insights.
Thank you so much.